The operation was successful. I have been having physiotherapy for 6 months and hope to be walking fully again by the end of the year. A huge round of applause erupts from the audience. Kelly responds with, "That's an unbelievable story. So tonight, who are you going to be?" "Tonight, Matthew, I am going to be Simon and Halfunkel." A man was walking past a retirement home with a tall wooden fence along the side. He heard voices chanting, 13, 13, 13, 13, 13, coming from inside the fence. Curious, he spied a knothole in the fence and put his eye up to it to see what was going on in there. Just as he did, a finger came out of nowhere and poked his eye hard. As he stumbled away in excruciating pain, he heard the chanting start up again. 14, 14, 14, 14. After years of hard work, Angie took her first vacation on a luxury cruise ship. While sitting in a deck chair, she recognized a former school classmate, a long-lost friend from her old hometown. She crossed the deck and shook hands with her friend and said, "Hello, Angela. I haven't seen you in years. What are you doing these days?" "I'm a lawyer," whispered Angela. "But don't tell my mother. She still thinks I'm a prostitute." Little Johnny's newborn baby sister just wouldn't stop crying one day. Annoyed, little Johnny asked his mom where they had got her from. "From heaven," replied his mom. "Well, I can see why they threw her out." Last night, around 11:50 p.m., my daughter gently woke me up. We'd just picked her up from her friend's birthday party a couple of hours earlier. My wife tucked her into bed while I passed out watching the Braves game. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging on my sleeve. "Guess how old I'm going to be next month?" Still half asleep, I smiled and said, "I don't know, sweetheart." "How old?" She grinned and slowly held up 4 fingers. Not her own, just 4 small fingers. It's 7:30 a.m. now. My wife and I haven't slept. We've asked her 100 times, but she won't say where she got them. And she just keeps smiling. Sleep is no longer the biggest concern in this house. 5 surgeons were taking a coffee break and discussing their work. The first said, "I think accountants are the easiest to operate on. You open them up and everything inside is numbered." The second said, "I think librarians are the easiest to operate on. You open them up and everything inside is in alphabetical order." The third said, "I like to operate on electricians. You open them up and everything inside is color-coded." The fourth surgeon said, "I like engineers. They always understand when you have a few parts left over at the end." The fifth one said, "I like to operate on lawyers. They're heartless, spineless, gutless, and their heads and their butts are interchangeable." A little old lady in Texas was home one quiet morning when there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a young man in a suit, smiling way too confidently and holding a high-powered vacuum cleaner. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "If I could just take 2 minutes of your time, I'd love to show you the very latest in vacuum technology, straight from California." She squinted at him and said, "Go away. I ain't got a dime for anything like that," and started to shut the door. But this guy was fast. He stuck his foot in the doorway and pushed it back open. "Now hold on just a minute," he said. "At least let me show you what this baby can do." And before she could stop him, he dumped an entire bucket of horse manure right on her carpet. "If this vacuum doesn't suck up every last trace of that, I'll personally eat whatever's left. Scout's honor." The old lady took a long look at the mess, then looked him dead in the eye and said, "Hang on while I get you a spoon. They cut off my electricity this morning." One morning, I turned to my wife and said, "I need to call the doctor today." She gave me a concerned look and asked, "Which doctor?" I paused, a little puzzled, and then replied, No, just the regular kind." She started laughing so hard I thought she might need a doctor herself. As it turned out, she had assumed I was talking about some sort of spooky witch doctor. So for the rest of the day, every time I passed her, she cackled and pretended to cast a spell on me with an imaginary wand. Later, when I actually did call the doctor, the receptionist asked, "What seems to be the problem?" I glanced over at my wife, who was still twirling her pretend wand, and said, "Apparently, my wife thinks I'm cursed." The receptionist chuckled and said, "Oh, it's probably just a case of the marriage magic. I hear it's highly contagious." A wild Karen stormed into the coffee shop, snatched her fancy order, took a sip, and froze like she just discovered betrayal in a cup. "Excuse me," she shouted. "This coffee is stale. I demand a fresh one. Now." The manager, a caffeine warrior on his 8th shift this week, replied, "No problem, ma'am. I'll make it myself." 5 minutes later, he returns with a fresh cup, crafted with love, stress, and mild trauma.